So there's a new hashtag called Resistcapitalism. And there's a lot of revolutionaries that are taking part in this activity. I don't understand why this shit is trending, but Gas the Jokes isn't, because we managed to reach, I think, 3 million people according to Thunderclap. And then again, I'm not surprised. This tweet is unavailable. Okay. Capitalism is thinking paying taxes will protect you as a citizen, but then realizing half of your money is spent on wars. Oh, I tweeted already to this person asking him how much does he think North Korea spends on military and how much North Korea spends on feeding the people. Because you have to understand, in communism, it's now the nation's job of feeding the people. And if the nation does a bad job, people can't feed themselves because you don't own property. So you can't feed yourself, unfortunately. In capitalism, you can. By the way, since the invention of 3D printers, isn't that capitalism, like literally gives people the means of production? Just saying. Capitalism is why it's acceptable for a government to spend $7 trillion on weapons, but free healthcare is too expensive. So, you understand the problem with the government, and you want to give it even more power. No. You want to give it all the power. Like, every single thing you want the government to have, to control even the smallest aspect of a person's life. You want the government to even be able, if it wants to install a radio in your house that will push propaganda 24/7 and you can't turn it off. I'm not kidding, that's what they make in North Korea. And it's legal for them to do it because it's not your house, it's the government's house. You are literally renting it from your government. See, this is something that people don't understand. They say that if you pay your taxes, you're renting your house from the government. No, it's not like that. The government can't tell you what to do inside your house, right? The government can't tell you to get out of the house if you pay the taxes. In communism, they can. In communist Romania, the government could literally tell you you're not allowed to live in there anymore, and there was nothing you could do because you didn't have ownership of your house. It belonged to the state. And also the government could tell you like you're not allowed to own two houses, right? Again, ownership, quote unquote. Martin Luther King apparently said that one day we must ask a question: why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask the question, you are raising questions about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalist economy. And allegedly, this was said by Martin Luther King. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but let's assume that indeed it's true. Just because someone is right on certain issues and aspects doesn't mean he's right on others. Because if you look at how many poor people are in North Korea, or how many poor people were in Romania, or how many poor people were in the Soviet Union, you would notice that in capitalism it was still a better way of life. Again, these people don't understand that just because capitalism has a few things that aren't going right, doesn't mean we should replace it altogether. If you have a well, and in that well you have a bucket, and the bucket has a hole, and you don't have any other bucket, the correct solution would be to plug the hole, not to throw away the bucket entirely and not replace it with anything, or replace it with something that you know doesn't work. Just saying. Racism cannot be separated from capitalism. The gypsies were quite oppressed in Romania during communism, and a lot of minorities were also oppressed in the Iron Curtain. I mean, this idea that capitalism can oppress minority is foolhardy, not to mention the fact that now you have the government which can oppress minorities at will. Like, it can pass whatever legislation it wants to. And during during communism, everyone was oppressed. In fact, in my country, the state made up a plan in order to separate families. I never understood why exactly they did it, but for instance, if I was at the University of Medicine and I was living in Iași, which is my hometown, the government could give me a job in Sibiu, precisely to separate me from my folks. They did this on purpose, because I know this since people from Sibiu were given jobs in Iași. Right? And I spoke with a lot of doctors who are old enough, and they told me about this, and it wasn't just about medicine. A lot of people who finished universities were given jobs in places far away from their homes, precisely to separate them. I think it's so that people don't get like maybe some sort of identity or some sort of ties with friends. You know, like an intellectual shouldn't start spreading around his intellectual nonsense. And maybe this was a way. I never understood why they did it, but they definitely did it. Because even our identities are marked for profit, but at least you have an identity, bitch. This is what people don't understand. In communism, you didn't have an identity. Eh? Everyone was equal, everyone was the same. In poverty, in misery, in all of these things, horrible. Eh? And why would you say... Again, just because capitalism has a few problems, doesn't mean that communism is the answer. And not to mention, like, when there is a recording of Hitler on YouTube, right? And it's very interesting because it's the only place where Hitler talks without a crowd. He's talking with some generals, and you can YouTube this and find it out for yourself. It's a really interesting thing because he talks about going into the Soviet Union and saying he didn't expect to see the Soviet Union having so much tanks. Because there were people that were chained in factories and forced to work constantly, right? So at least your identities in capitalism are marked for profit. In communism, you work for free. I mean, when the Chernobyl exploded and you had to shield the radiation, the communists just forced the workers to go there. And you couldn't say no. I mean, if you say no, not only that they probably shot you, or send you to a gulag or something, but your families would have to face the consequences as well. So, yeah, if the party sent you to plug the radiation knowing you're going to die from cancer, you had to do it. For free, by the way, not even with profit. Because communists and anarchists brought down hashtag Milo Yiannopoulos. Isn't this an argument against communism, if that's the case? Capitalism is the private accumulation of wealth via the appropriation of labor and land. Resist capitalism by demanding wealth distribution. Do you think that wealth distribution is ever done fairly, or that the people distributing it will distribute an exaggerated amount to themselves? See, this is why I hate Twitter. Just put like more. No one becomes wealthy by their own efforts. Alone fortunes are made off the backs of the masses. Just like the ruling elites do in any communist nation. Why? Because in the cis-sexist society, heterosexuality seems essential to produce new workers and to exploit and profit off. Oh my god, these people are retarded. Like, all communist nations wanted more people. And as such, gayness was heavily frowned upon, you know? Fucking here to educate these twats. Because my ancestors were kidnapped from their home to fuel it. Okay, did you look at the Soviet deportations after World War II? Oh god. See, just because Einstein is a renowned physicist doesn't mean the guy is incredibly smart on political issues. And it's something interesting to point out. Albert Einstein was probably pro-socialism because he was in Nazi Germany, right? And he saw the horrors of fascism. And the answer for them was socialism, because it's the same what happens now with the white genocide, allegedly, right? You see the nastiness of cultural Marxism, and some people think the answer is fascism, right? But they forget that capitalism exists. And I don't understand how they can put here Fidel Castro. This is just puke-inducing. What the fuck? Karl Marx. Vladimir Lenin. I mean, see, I can sort of... I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that anyone who says the idea that communism was done poorly in the past and we're going to get it right this time, I think he's a moron. But at least I understand that he's delusional. At least I understand how his brain works. But I don't understand people who quote Lenin, right? Who actually was in power and we saw how bad it was, and you know, Fidel Castro the same. Ay, 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 what is wrong with you people? And Karl Marx, obviously. Yeah, sure. You know, I normally don't encourage people to do this, but for the love of God, do reply to these people. If you have a lot of time, what is this filth? What is this shit? Oh, get the fuck. If you have a lot of time, please go on this hashtag and try to educate these people, right? Don't troll them. Or troll them if it's educational. But do give them responses like I do, because I think they need to be engaged and shown that there is another way. I think these people are misguided. I don't think they're evil, right? At least not all of them. I don't think they're bad people, quote unquote. I think they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And it's interesting because I'm curious if I would make a hashtag that promotes fascism or Nazism or whatever. I'm curious if it would be allowed on Twitter. I don't understand why these things are not considered offensive, right? I mean, people died because of it. My ancestors died because of it. And for some reason, it's fine. Look at this, right? But if you put fascism, which is just... actually not. No. Fascism isn't equally as bad. Less people died because of fascism than they died because of communism. Communism is objectively worse. I don't know a single communist nation, and if I don't know, that doesn't mean they don't exist, but it means that if they exist, they're quite few, by the way. So I don't know any communist nation that didn't starve its people, that didn't murder the intellectuals, and that wasn't very brutal to political opponents and dissidents, and didn't end up in killing people, you know, like one more bullet away from the perfect utopia. I'm very triggered by this, and again, I encourage you to go here and, you know, interact with these people. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Why would you try to bring these atrocities back to life? Jesus Christ. What is wrong with you people? Stop it.